Okay, so we've gone over um, how to clarify our language, okay, for critical thinking. Then we've gone over ways that we should argue and more specifically, like what sort of mindset we should have. Are we out to win or are we out to get at the truth? Okay. Well, now we're going to get to that next part, which is getting to the truth. And we're going to try to do that using logic. Okay, so now if you remember back to the beginning, logic is the study of good and bad reasoning, and we're going to be focusing on what the good reasoning is. Okay, so here we go. So we want good reasoning, and this falls under our rubric of our 4 ways to reason well. Okay, 1, clarify the claim. 2, identify argument or rhetoric. 3, if it's argument, identify the premises. And 4, evaluate the argument. Now we're on that last part, evaluate the argument. Okay. Now to evaluate the argument and to learn how to evaluate the argument, that's the studying the good and bad reasoning part. Okay, so that's how things fit together. Okay. To understand this though, we're going to have to understand what truth is. So truth. Okay, truth. Now, when people talk about truth, like they're like, what is truth? What is the nature of truth? People kind of think of that as like a deep philosophical question. What is truth? And some people even say, like, what's truth with a capital T? Okay. Um, Now, I actually don't know what people mean when they make it capitalized. To me, it's kind of just nonsense, or just like window dressing. We just care about like what do we ordinarily mean when we're saying that somebody is saying something is true or false, right? What you said is true. What you said is false. That was a false claim. That's a true claim. Okay, so we're just going with the ordinary meaning of the word true or truth. Okay, and the first thing we want to ask is what sorts of things are true? Okay, what sorts of things are false? Can this eraser be true? Can it be false? That doesn't really make sense. I can ask whether this eraser can be black, or whether it can be soft, or whether it can be light. Okay, so erasers can be that, but an eraser can't be true, right? But it can be black. So then what is it that is true? What sort of thing is true? Well, if you think about it, you'll probably say maybe sentences. Sentences are true. So maybe a sentence like what? Here's a sentence. Oranges are round. Maybe I could have thought of something better, but I could have said oranges are orange, but yeah, oranges are round. Okay, that'd be a true sentence, right? And similarly, we'd say oranges are not round. Okay, and that would be a not true sentence. It'd be a false sentence. Okay, so what sorts of things are true are sentences, and the things that are false are also sentences. But if we want to think a little more deeply, it's not just the sentence that's true or false, it's actually the claim made by the sentence. Now, if you think back, what is the claim made by the sentence? And if you think about it, you'll remember it's a word, starts with a P. Do you remember it starts with a P? It's a proposition. Okay, so if you remember back, proposition is the claim made by a sentence, okay? And remember, different sentences can make the same claim. They can express the same proposition. So if remembering back, Mary loves Fred, and Fred is loved by Mary. 2 different sentences, same proposition. And that's the proposition. It's the claim that can be true or false. Okay, so really it's the claim that's true or false, and then we use the sentence to communicate that claim. Okay, and we might use different languages or different utterances to express the proposition. For example, here's a sentence, oranges are round, but right now, here's this, oranges are round. The sentence came out of my mouth. It's by vocalizations, vibrations in the air. So a sentence can be ink or marker on a board, or it can be oranges are round. It can be vocal. So sentences can come in different forms, but they can make the same claim, express the same proposition, and that proposition can be true or false. So so we'll typically talk about the proposition being true or false. So for a proposition, I'm going to call that P. And so now when we want to ask what is truth, okay, what we want to define is what it is for a proposition to be true. So P is true equals what? Under what conditions is a proposition P true? That's our question. Or if you remember, what is a definition? A definition is necessary and sufficient conditions for the proposition to be true. Okay, but we'll just talk about the conditions under which a proposition is true. Now, in the Zoom session, we're going to go into a false theory of truth. We'll discuss it at some length, but I'm just going to go right ahead and give what the book gives as the correct definition of truth. And it's going to say this. For P to be true is this. P matches how the world really is. Okay? And similarly, for P to be false is this. P, can you guess? It's going to say P doesn't match how the world really is. Oops. Okay. So this is what's both required and enough, necessary and sufficient for a proposition to be true. P not matching how the world is required for and enough for a proposition to be false. Okay, so here's a proposition. There's a proposition expressed by the sentence, oranges are round. What is it for it to be true? It's for the proposition to match how the world really is. So let's say here's a round orange, and this says oranges are round, so they match. It says oranges are round, the oranges is round, they match. And that's what it is for this sentence to be true. The sentence meaning matches reality. Okay. On the other hand, oranges are not round. This is false because, right, this is oranges are not round, but oranges are round, so it doesn't match. So for the proposition oranges are not round is false because it doesn't match how the world really is. Okay, so that's our definition of truth, and we'll talk more about a false definition of truth in the Zoom session, and let's continue on.